I mean, I have an interesting story. I started writing online in 2006, the stone age of the internet, and at the time I was a student. Actually at the tail end of high school, I started. Most of my writing was in university at the beginning. And, being a university student, there wasn't really anything I could like credibly write on other than that I was a good student, and I thought a lot about like how do you study effectively. And so that kind of naturally became a topic source for you, because it certainly wasn't like, okay, I'm going to be giving people, middle-aged women advice on how to fix their marriage or something. Like, I mean, clearly my expertise was pretty narrow at that point. And so that was the starting point. But I feel like I've always been interested in learning things, reading lots of books. So I think it was a natural fit for other reasons as well. And then when I graduated from university, I'd already been sort of like doing well enough that I wanted to make this sort of writing, creating content, teaching courses, this kind of stuff, my livelihood. And so that was when I started kind of doubling down and doing some of these intensive learning projects. So the big one that I'm kind of known for, I guess, is I did a project I called the MIT Challenge, which was trying to learn MIT's 4-year computer science curriculum. And they happen to post a lot of their material online for free. This is not just something I figured out. This is something that they do. And so I just wanted to see, has anyone ever tried to learn their curriculum using the final exams and problem sets and stuff that they have, without going to MIT. And so this was the first project, as I tried to do that in 12 months. And then a year after that, I did another project with a friend where we traveled to 4 different countries, learning different languages. So we went to Spain to learn Spanish, Brazil to learn Brazilian Portuguese. We went to China to learn Mandarin, and South Korea to learn Korean. And the kind of gimmick, as it were, of the project was that when we would land in each country, we would only speak to each other and people we meet in the language we were trying to learn. And it was a fun experience. We did these little like documentary videos for it. And I mean, certainly we're not like perfect in every single language, especially, this is now 10 years in the past. But we got further than I was anticipating we were going to get. And so we were actually, able to make friends and have conversations and all sorts of things. And so that was an interesting experience too. And then I had a number of other little projects like learning to draw portraits and quantum mechanics and various things. And those kind of culminated in my 2019 book, Ultra Learning. And then more recently, I did like a fairly deep dive into a lot of the academic research on how learning works, cognitive science, cognitive psychology. And a lot of that research formed the basis of my second book, Get Better at Anything. So yeah, that's like the brief history of my, last 20 years of doing this. But it's been a wild ride, and I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when you say it's something you've been speaking about now pretty consistently since 2006, and there's
Yeah.
still so much more to say. So the idea of being able to delve down deep into every single one of these topics and doing it justice, I guess we've got our work cut out. But even in that little description of what it was that you did, you recognize quite quickly that depending on what it is that you're actually focused on learning, there's perhaps different approaches, like that immersion style of learning that you just spoke about with reference to the countries and languages that you are learning. I've heard that is perhaps maybe the most effective way when it comes to languages. I wouldn't know. I'm still navigating my way through English at this point in time. But it seems as though that seems to be the way to do it. I mean, I watch my 2 boys go from a blank slate to now speaking relatively good English. Like they can have basic conversations and understand basic concepts, and they never sat down once on Duolingo. It was purely them speaking to me, and it was back and forth, and it was attempts, and it was failures, and it was frustration. And then 4 years of that, or even less, really, my oldest boy, you could get through a decent conversation with him at 2.5.
Yeah.
It's quite incredible what you can do just off the slate. But I think, I don't know if this is a stereotype or just something that goes on in my head, but the idea of how to learn, I think I sometimes throw out a one-size-fits-all approach. And that was maybe what I was getting at with the initial question around how I learned stand-up effectively.
Yeah.
Are there some general ground rules when it comes to actually taking huge steps forward, regardless of what it is that you're learning, that sort of cross over? Or are there just clear distinctions between things like, all right, here's my computer science course I'm getting done in 12 months, and this is how I learn a language in a brief state?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think at the sort of big scale, like taking on these big projects, there's a lot of little decisions that are being made that maybe make either the learning more efficient, or you're sort of focusing on something particular. So you're maybe like ignoring having to learn some other things so that you can get really good at something in particular. So I think it's hard to draw like really, really broad generalizations like, oh, we'll do this and then you'll learn everything faster. But it's more, I think, just having a deeper understanding of, okay, well, what is the thing that you have to do when you're learning? Like, what is the changes that are going on in your brain, and what do we know about like effective ways to do that? So, I mean, I think there's a lot of different things. Like one of the things that I really stress in ultra learning is this idea of beginning a learning effort by trying to figure out how the subject or skill actually works. So what is involved in getting good at this? Like what facts do you need to memorize? If we're thinking about languages again, like vocabulary, you have to memorize. What are the procedures that you have to get good at? And what are the concepts that you need to understand? And if you can kind of digest a big topic into a bunch of little things, then really learning is just kind of checking off all those little things. And I think sometimes the reason we struggle with learning is that we just approach it in this sort of amorphous mass, where it's like, oh, I want to get good at this, and it's just unclear at all how to proceed with that. And so I think if you can break it down and sort of chart a map of like, well, this is how people learn to play the piano, and this is how people learn to get good at tennis, and this is what's involved in speaking another language, or becoming really good at chess. I mean, it doesn't on its own suggest that you're going to do it 100 times faster than anyone else. I don't, well, 100 times is an exaggeration, but it's not on its own suggesting you're going to be doing it much more efficiently. But once you kind of know how it works, it's easier to see how certain choices you make are going to maybe influence your results. So if you have a lot of things to memorize, I'm a big advocate of using like spaced repetition systems. You just mentioned, the memory palace is a mnemonic technique for memorizing things on stage. So these are tools that, like, once you figure out, okay, memorizing this script is going to be really important for my success as an actor, and if I use this technique, I can memorize it faster, well, then that's a way that you can do it better. And so I think that's sort of how I like to think about it. If you can't really even start to optimize the process until you know what it is you're actually trying to do.